move to town, I have to use to move with my identification document. So for that matter, these people suffer, yeah, because of that. But some researches have been done in those countries, and I found that some of the studies they discovered that those people who were asked, the owners of those households and the government people were asked about this vice of, confiscating people's documents. Actually, the owners are saying it's a culture that we have to keep the documents safe. It's a culture that people have, the workers of the household or the domestic servants are supposed to be in the house. They're supposed to be keeping safe ways confined. But that is abuse of someone's freedom, abuse of human freedom, in my view. I mean, like, they may say it's a culture, but I don't think it is. I think it is, they're just hiding in the guise of a culture. Otherwise, it's not a practice that is good. So the thing which makes it matter worse is documents being kept by the what? By the boss. But, I'm told some government authorities, just in their, as persons, they try to say that the workers are not supposed to be subjected to that. The documents are not supposed to be held by the household owner. But the workers, it means that it looks as if the workers don't have, they don't know maybe their rights, but still maybe the policies in those governments have not come out explicitly about that kind of practice, that these household owners or the bosses are not supposed to keep the documents of their workers. So these workers face threat, arrest, or deportation in case they are maybe reporting such things. Isolation from their families because you don't have even time to go for holiday in all the years that you're working there. Or, they suffer. They don't have any close networks because they are confined in a way, and they are subjected to psychological and sexual abuse. So this is kind of the involuntary domestic servitude. I mean, the household domestic workers are facing sometimes. But we have human trafficking also in form of child labor. Globally, it is estimated that there are 168 million child labor, over half of whom are in hazardous work conditions. So child labor refers to work that has deleterious effects on the children's health, including depriving them of their childhood potential. So this work may be mentally or physically dangerous and harmful, and it also interferes with their schooling. Children are finding themselves either because maybe their parents have died or because of poverty. There could be a number of reasons. Some of them actually are orphans, but they find themselves in the street and they're subjected to child labor. As children are more easily manipulated, they are preferred, because they require fewer resources, and the use of child labor is increasingly there available because of the poverty situation, globalization, and demand for cheap labor. But also, human trafficking can take in form of child soldiers. There are about 300,000 child soldiers worldwide. Child soldiers, they are those people under 18 who have been recruited or conscripted either forcefully or by being lured by the armed forces and armed groups. It can be the armed forces in the government, because even the government, sometimes the government government soldiers, they also sometimes recruit child soldiers. You don't remember that even in Uganda we had the Kadogos, in Congo also, DRC, they had the Kadogos. Kadogos are these young boys in most cases, and maybe a few girls that are involved in combat roles in those armed groups and the armed forces. So the definition of child soldier includes boys and girls who are used as fighters, as cooks, as transporters, messengers, spies, and also they are used for sexual purposes, because you can recall the army, the LRA, the Lord's Resistance Army in northern Uganda. They used the child soldiers, and The girls in most cases are used as wives. I put wives in quotes because they were forced wives, to be wives of rebels. Some of them were actually given to rebel commanders as wives when they were as young as 11 years, 12 years old, when they start their first menstruation. It was really something very traumatizing for them. But child soldiering is also considered as one of the forms of human trafficking. Okay, of course, it may try to be within the country. It can be the rebels are in the country. And now we've seen that they have now moved to Central African Republic with those children and men and women that are there. So the perpetrators are not only rebel groups, as I said, but also government and the paramilitary organizations. Ideally, according to the laws international that protects the right of the child, they are not supposed to be recruited as child soldiers. Child soldiers endure extreme psychological and physiological damage, making reintegration in their communities very, very complicated and very, very difficult. It is because some of these child soldiers are forced to commit atrocities against their own communities. And for that matter, it becomes very difficult for them when they are rescued by the government or when they are returning to their communities, when they escape the rebellion, the rebellious groups or the rebel groups, as they come to their communities, they face discrimination, they face rejection, because of the acts that they were made to commit. Because some of them who were abducted, actually, they did that because of the fear. Because some of them were forced to kill their parents and forced to kill their people. Short of that, you are killed yourself. So they did it out of fear. But anyway, that is also one of the challenges that they face. Now let's look at the root causes of human trafficking in Uganda. First of all, there is ignorance of the vice and associated complications. People are not aware of that they are being trafficked. That's one thing. If you have a friend and say, oh, me, I'm going to work in a certain place, I'm going to work in Saudi Arabia, then you ask them, do you really know what? Because you need to do some bit of research. I know that we have recruitment organizations in Uganda, but sometimes it is difficult to tell which people are which organizations are the right ones and which ones are the wrong ones. And some of the organizations may be actually genuine here in the country, and they connect you there to go and work. They even don't know what is happening that side. Unfortunately, there are some countries in which we even don't have embassies. So if you don't have an embassy in that country, where do you run to? That's a very complicated thing, okay? So another root cause of human trafficking is poverty. People have finished school, maybe they have no jobs, they are jobless, so they are saying, okay, let me go and work somewhere. But you can't know what you're going to face. Then lack of political, social, and economic stability is also one of the causes of human trafficking, because if a country is facing instability, then it means that its people will not have jobs sometimes, or things will be difficult in one way or another. Lack of public awareness of the human trafficking. I think this is connected to the ignorance point. Organized crime syndicates. There are those organizations. There are those organizations that are really actually organized. They are human traffickers. There is also weak or absence of domestic laws against human trafficking, because the investigation may take place, but people may not be wholly responsible. Unemployment is also one of the things. Political instability, high dropout rates in school, domestic violence also can be considered as one of the factors. There's also now we are also looking at the impact of human trafficking. It can have serious impacts, as you can see them there. Psychological, they can be tortured because of depression and so on. Loss of support for the family because of the isolation. I mentioned about them being not connected with their families because of the confinement sometimes. Loss of proper education, legal insecurities, disease out of the sexual trafficking and so on. So what has been done is that a number of countries in Africa have the anti-trafficking human laws, including US and other countries. The Ugandan government also has the legal environment against trafficking. But the problem we are seeing is that no much effort has been done. There are policy gaps in implementation of the law. That is a very challenging thing. For example, IOM, for example, has conducted national-wide information campaign. But the issue we are having is that we need the government to kind of being more proactive in this initiative. Corruption has been there, and sometimes some of the workers in the government are connected to these traffickers in one way or another. So that one has also posed a lot of a challenge. Thank you so much about this session. I think with human trafficking, we can end here so that in the next lecture we go and discuss about extremism and terrorism.